Hello, good morning, and welcome back to the channel. So, the Jeep's gonna get worked on today, finally. If you guys have been following the channel, the most recent videos, you know my life has been crazy busy lately, but I'm back in the garage today. I'm gonna work on something fun. I got my helper here, and I have my winch plate, and some DOM tubing. As you guys can probably tell by the title of the video, I'm going to do a custom DIY recessed winch inside my Motobuilt kit here. So, I'm not gonna waste any time, I'm gonna jump into it. Let's get started. So if you're familiar with my build at all, you've probably watched the video where I installed this Motobuilt full width conversion kit. It's a reverse shackle kit, brings the axle forward a couple inches. It gives you this really rad, cool looking bumper that just looks awesome. They also supply this winch plate here that sits on top, looks super clean, bolts down to the frame, then you put your winch on it, obviously. There was a Fairlead mount that went here on the front, but I wanted to do something different with this kit, and I let Sam cut the Fairlead off and put it on his build. So now I don't have the Fairlead, and with this, I want to recess this plate down into there. That way the winch can be mounted a few inches below the top of the frame. And then unfortunately, as much as I love this Motobuilt logo here, I'm gonna cut that out and I'm gonna put the Fairlead mount right here. That way everything's kind of tucked and clean and looks nice. So, I don't really know what I'm doing here. I'm gonna start by getting the grill off, getting that whole area cleaned up, and then probably work on getting that factory cross member cut out. And actually, this cross member and that body mount for the grill mount, that is the only factory mounting, I guess, or bracket or anything left on the frame. Everything else has been either custom made or replaced with aftermarket parts. So I can't have one factory thing left on the frame after going this far, so it's gonna get nixed and I'm gonna go about it. So I'm gonna get the grill off, get that area cleaned up, and we'll look at it a little bit closer. Well, there we have it. Front end is removed, and now I have plenty of room to work in here, especially because there's no accessories on the motor or anything like that, so room for days. I'm gonna dig right into it, and I think just get the main tube out of the way. So that's how it looks. Now I'm just trying to figure out the best way to go about here, getting those off. I'm honestly thinking about just cutting the frame out. I'm gonna take some measurements on a few things here and figure out what my next step's gonna be, but I think the easiest way for me is gonna be cut the whole frame section out there, just weld a flat piece in, instead of trying to grind all that down and then have to cover the hole anyway. Okay, so I got the winch out of the box. We can actually see through the grill, kind of just back up in place where it sits. So if I would have kept it, the winch plate and everything, that's where everything would sit. As you can see, the winch covers a fair amount of the grill, so sinking it down a bit is gonna let a little bit more air into that radiator, help cool the LS. So has some benefits functionally, but also aesthetically, I think it'll look good, kind of drop down in there. So now, again, I just have the hood prop propping the grill where it's supposed to go. But as you can see, holes are lined up where it would bolt to the frame, and I have the holes lined up to the plate where it would bolt to the winch. As you can see, there's a good bit of room for me to shift this back a little bit. So the bumper has a piece of metal that comes in probably to about here, which I'm probably gonna have to actually shape that out a little bit to clear the winch going down in. But to give me a little bit more room, I can actually scoot the winch and the plate back when I recess it in, just to get it kind of tucked in closer. And then for the power wire, I could probably run it maybe through the grill and hide it nicely, or go under the grill. That's all future stuff. But again, I wanted you guys to see kind of how it was designed to be, and then how we're gonna change it. So I lined the mounting holes up where I would factory bolt the plate down into, and then I marked straight line right on the inside of the frame rail. Cut that. That should be then narrow enough to fit down. And then once I'm there, I'll figure out where I need to trim off the front once I scoot it back and down in. So cut that, start cleaning up the frame, and we'll get that down in place. Hi there. So glad you guys are still with me, because that was a lot of welding and grinding. But I got my fair lead clamped up to the bumper now, because I want to mark where I got to cut for this. And then I'll show you guys all the areas I welded and ground down and how it looks. But I figured since I'm here, talk about this real quick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure, make it center between these two recovery points, and center from here to here on this space. Hello, Luna. So I'm going to take a couple measurements, get this set, mark it with a Sharpie. That way I can take it off, drill and cut, do that, and then I'll show you guys how everything looks before we move on to the next step with the grill. All right, you ready? Yeah. Okay. Okay. And it gives us an idea of where our fair lead's going to be. on this cut, I'm gonna wanna definitely do on the outside of this because I don't want any of the sharp edge to protrude past the inside of this because I don't want it to cut the synthetic rope. So I'm gonna make sure I cut that a little bit bigger, probably to the opening that is, just to give me the extra room. And yeah, so that's where the fairlead's gonna go. Well, that was a bunch more work than what I kind of thought it was going to be, but I'm super happy with it. Ain't that right? Yeah. So this is how the whole setup is looking. If you remember, there were the 2 threaded holes that the old winch plate would mount to, so I filled them in on both sides, got that all ground smooth. I didn't have to, but I just wanted the clean look of it ground down smooth, as well as the seam in here between the plate and the bumper. So I just kind of welded that whole seam and then just ground it down smooth and flush across. So I don't know, didn't have to do it, wanted to do it. I think it looks cleaner. And then welded the plate to the front bumper, the side plate to the front bumper down here. I'm gonna leave this opening back here, again, as another drain hole, as well as this front drain hole. Same on this side. That and that will both be drain holes. Then I welded the new cross member all the way around, and then I stitched the back of the plate to that as well, and then got all the welds from underneath. So that is how it looks. I'm very happy with it. I think it looks really, really clean. And then I just cut out the hole, which this was a pain in the butt because I don't have the right tools to kind of get that radius. So I sat there with a file, and it's not the cleanest, but it'll work. You won't see any of those cuts because the fairlead will hide it. And then I just got the holes drilled. So now I want to get the fairlead mounted. I want to get the grill back on and put the winch on and just see how everything looks. So I'm going to do that now. Alrighty, so I got the hood back on too, and yeah, I think the grill needs a little bit of adjustment. Now the next step is making a grill mount down off of that tube I put in, and then the big hole I cut out of the grill, make a bracket that will mount to the tube there. And then from there, that should be done. The only thing is, if you can tell, this gap is obviously tighter than this gap, which means the hood is tilted too far down. Reason behind that is because when I did my new body mounts on the frame, I moved everything up, which shifted the body about 3/4 of an inch higher off of the frame, and the grill is actually sitting on the frame at factory. So what I need to also do is put a spacer block underneath those rubber bushings to raise the grill just enough to kind of equal out that gap there. Easiest solution is just going to be welding like a spacer block onto the frame there just to raise everything up. So that's my idea. That's the next step. But overall, I am super pumped with how this looks. Nice recessed winch. See the cross member down in there. The frame's all cleaned up. It looks good. I started digging through my scrap pieces to figure out a grill spacer. And from when I did my floor, I have some leftover, focus. I have some leftover 3/4 inch square tubing. So I just kind of set just a piece across there just to see. And now that gap is pretty dang good. I'm pretty happy with that. So I took a couple small scraps I had together, tacked two together to kind of give me a little plate. So that's going to sit right along the frame there underneath this bushing, and weld this to the frame, and that should be my spacer to get the grill height right. So once I have these welded, then that'll set my spacing off of the cross member to figure out the height I need to make the grill mount, and we are done with this project. So jump into it, get all this in, and wrap this up. I don't know if you guys can tell through all that time lapse, but got my grill spacer blocks is what I'm going to call them. Kind of welded on and smoothed out, so nothing really fancy. They don't honestly look the prettiest, but that will get the grill raised up off the frame at the proper height. And then I took one of my old body mounts, actually, from when I cut off the frame to do the swag body mounts over there. So I took this guy because I had it in my scrap pile and trimmed it, did a little bit of a notch there to go around the tube, and then two very light tacks, and that will be my new bushing mount for the grill. It actually works pretty perfect. And then on the grill, if you guys noticed, I welded in a new plate. So now what's left is just to drill a hole in that plate so I can do the bolt up through the bushing. Then I can bolt the grill on, and this is done. The grill is officially bolted back into the frame. I need to get the proper hardware. That was what was on it before, and I don't even think that was right, but the bolt is just a little too long. So for now, it's gonna work, but I will get the proper bolt, bushings, washers, all that jazz. So the last thing to do now is drop the winch in place and see how she looks. There we have it. One custom recessed winch mount, and I am stoked with the final product there. I think it turned out awesome. I think it's clean, looks really good, and it's super functional. So better than what I envisioned in my head, and I'm super happy with that. Now, for those of you that have a wide, you're like, wow, I want to do that. Unfortunately, for you guys, more than likely, it's probably not going to be as easy because you're still going to have your steering box to contend with. I didn't really talk about that at the beginning of the video, but if you're following this project, you know I'm going full hydro. So with a full hydro system, I will not need a steering box. So it let me deal with this whole area just by cutting it out. Normally, your steering box would be back in here, so it would be a lot harder to do what I did. So just keep that in mind if you're thinking about doing this yourself, but there are ways to do it. Luna enjoys it. She thinks it's cool. And yeah, so I'm going to do some clips now close-ups, show you guys a little bit of that, and we're gonna close out the video. Appreciate you guys hanging in there. I will see you in the next video. Have a good night. Bye.